Hey there, welcome back to the channel Tides of Memory. I'm really glad you're here because today we're diving into one of the most fascinating, complex and dramatic collapses in all of world history, the fall of the Roman Empire. Now think about this. Rome wasn't just any empire, it was the empire. For centuries it ruled over vast swaths of Europe, the Middle East and North Africa. It shaped the world in ways that are still visible today, from law and politics to language, architecture and engineering, and yet somehow it crumbled. So how does something so powerful, so massive, so deeply rooted in the world just fall apart? That question has fascinated historians, scholars and curious minds for generations. Because the fall of Rome wasn't like flipping a switch. It didn't collapse in a single night or even a single decade. It was a slow, grinding unraveling, a complex mix of internal decay and external pressures. And what makes this story even more compelling is that many of the problems that brought down Rome, they still exist today. So let's rewind. Way back. Over 2,000 years ago, Rome started out as just a small city-state in what's now central Italy. Nothing too special at first, but through relentless military campaigns, strategic alliances, savvy politics and sheer ambition, it rose to become a global superpower. At its peak, the Roman Empire stretched from the chilly hills of Britain to the sun-scorched sands of Egypt, from the Atlantic coast of Spain all the way to the rivers of Mesopotamia. It built an infrastructure so advanced that some of it's still in use today, paved roads that connected the empire like arteries, aqueducts that carried clean water into cities, public baths, courts, forums and amphitheatres that brought order and culture to daily life, and behind it all was a well-oiled government system and a professional army that few dared to challenge. But every empire has its limits. By the 3rd and 4th centuries AD, things were starting to fall apart. Not all at once, but like a building with cracks in the foundation, it was only a matter of time before everything began to buckle. One of the biggest cracks? Political chaos. The Roman government descended into dysfunction. Emperors came and went at a dizzying pace, some ruling for years, others for months, and a few for just days. Power was often won not through competence or leadership, but through bribery, backstabbing and bloodshed. There was even a moment in history when the title of emperor was literally auctioned off to the highest bidder by the Praetorian Guard, Rome's own elite soldiers. Just imagine, your head of state chosen like an eBay listing. And when leadership becomes a dangerous game of survival, long-term planning disappears. Emperors were more focused on keeping their thrones or stealing someone else's than on fixing the empire's problems. Local governors seized more power, corruption ran rampant, and the people at the top grew increasingly out of touch with the struggles of ordinary citizens. The economy, too, was in deep trouble. Rome's wealth had long been fueled by conquest. New territories meant new resources, new slaves, and new tax revenue. But once the empire stopped expanding, the money stopped flowing. Meanwhile, the costs of running the empire only grew. Huge armies needed to be fed and paid, roads and aqueducts needed repairs, and the lavish lifestyles of the elite, those weren't cheap either. To keep things afloat, the government started minting more coins, but with less precious metal in them. That led to runaway inflation. Money lost its value, prices soared, people's savings became worthless overnight. In some places, people went back to bartering, as if the clock had turned back hundreds of years. And then there was the military. Once the pride of Rome, the unstoppable Roman legions, began to change. Fewer Roman citizens wanted to join the army, so the empire began recruiting foreign mercenaries. These were soldiers from outside the empire's borders. Many were skilled fighters, but they weren't fighting for Rome, they were fighting for a paycheck. And when things got tough, loyalty to a flag meant far less than loyalty to gold. At the same time, the pressure from outside was growing. Rome's borders were under constant attack. Germanic tribes like the Visigoths, Vandals and Ostrogoths were being pushed westward by even more fearsome invaders like the Huns. Entire populations were on the move, fleeing war and seeking refuge, and often clashing with Roman forces in the process. In 376 AD, a large group of Visigoths asked for asylum from the Romans. The empire allowed them in, but treated them terribly. They were extorted, starved, and abused. It was a recipe for disaster. 2 years later, the Visigoths rebelled, and at the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD, they dealt a crushing blow to the Roman army, killing Emperor Valens and tens of thousands of troops. It was a turning point, a brutal reminder that Rome's power was not eternal. And then, the unthinkable happened. In the year 410 AD, Rome was sacked. The Visigoths, under their leader Alaric, entered the Eternal City and looted it. This was the first time in nearly 800 years that Rome had been breached by a foreign enemy. To the Roman people and to the world, it was psychological devastation. The city that once ruled the known world had been violated. From there, the decline accelerated. The Western Roman Empire, based in Italy, continued to shrink. Province after province either fell into chaos or was taken over by invading tribes. The Eastern Roman Empire, what we now call the Byzantine Empire, held on from its capital in Constantinople, and it would survive for nearly another 1,000 years. But the West was in its death throes. Finally, in 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor, a teenage boy named Romulus Augustulus, was overthrown by the Germanic general Odoacer. No dramatic final stand, no glorious last battle, just a quiet, almost bureaucratic handover of power. And with that, the Western Roman Empire officially ceased to exist. But here's the eerie part. Many Romans didn't even realize it was over. Life kept going. People still paid taxes. Local leaders still governed. There was no dramatic end of the world moment. It was more like a slow fade into something unrecognizable. A world that once had order, law, and global influence slowly crumbled into darkness and disorder. And so the classical Roman world gave way to the Middle Ages. So, what brought down one of the greatest civilizations in history? It wasn't one thing, it was everything. Political instability, economic failure, military decay, leadership crises, social division, outside invasions, death by 1,000 cuts, and perhaps most chilling of all, many people didn't see it coming until it was far too late. Which brings us to today, because the story of Rome isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror, a warning. Even the mightiest empires can fall if they lose sight of what made them strong. So, what do you think? Could something like this ever happen again? Are we ignoring the cracks in our own systems? Was the fall of Rome truly inevitable, or were there moments where it all could have been turned around? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the past that still shape our present. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious.